In an industrial facility, operators interact with a variety of people, including other employees and contractors working inside the plant, and possibly customers and people from the surrounding community. The way operators communicate with other people can affect safety in plant production as well as the image of the company. Effective communication is a vital part of an operator's interpersonal responsibilities. Without good communication, tasks such as system startup and problem solving would be difficult to accomplish. Communication is basically a process of exchanging information. Many communication situations are similar, and they can be analyzed using a basic communication model. The communication model seen here can be used to help explain what happens during the communication process. In this example, a source or sender initiates the communication process by sending a message. The message is transmitted through some sort of channel. For verbal communication, that channel is the speaker's voice. In this form of communication, both the words that are spoken and the tone of voice that's used are involved. The message that's transmitted by the sender is received by a receiver. The receiver translates the message to obtain its meaning. Communication is rarely a one-way process, so the receiver will often ask questions or provide feedback to the sender. When this happens, the original roles are reversed. That is, the receiver becomes the sender, and the sender becomes the receiver. This reversal of roles can continue back and forth until the end of the communication process. Now, a communication process doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes, certain factors can interfere with the process. These factors are often referred to as noise. In this sense, noise is anything that blocks or distorts the message. For example, outside interference or static on a radio or telephone is one form of noise that can prevent a message from getting through clearly. But not all forms of noise are so obvious. If a person involved in the communication process is preoccupied with something, or if they're tired, they may have trouble concentrating on what someone else is saying. And while these types of factors may not always be obvious, there's still forms of noise that can interfere with a message. Part of an operator's job involves sending and receiving messages under a variety of conditions. As a sender, an operator should send each message clearly and accurately to reduce noise and minimize any misunderstanding on the receiver's part. As a receiver, the operator should listen carefully to each message and provide feedback to the sender. A receiver should never guess at the intended meaning of a message and should ask questions whenever necessary. Everyone who works for a company contributes directly or indirectly to the company's production and profitability. In a large plant, an operator may not be able to clearly see how his actions contribute to the company's profits. For example, the product that an operator helps to produce may not be the final product that the company sells. But even though operators may not see the products that customers buy, the operator is still a factor in whether the company is able to sell the products. Part of an operator's job involves interacting with other people inside the plant, including other operators, supervisors, and safety and maintenance personnel, to name a few. The interaction that occurs among these people can take place verbally or in written form. In either case, the communication must be clear, accurate, and professional. Operators work with other operators on a daily basis to keep the plant running smoothly and to help solve problems. These operators may all be from the same plant unit, or if the plant consists of more than one unit, they may be from different units. Either way, operators must make an effort to avoid communication problems. Whenever people work together, there's always the risk that interpersonal conflicts will arise. When conflicts occur, they can make communication difficult and interfere with finding solutions to problems. When dealing with peers, an operator should try to minimize interpersonal conflicts and keep communication going on a professional and cooperative level. Another group of people that operators routinely work with consists of supervisory personnel. Operators and supervisors share the same basic goals: safe operation and optimum unit production. To accomplish these goals, good communication between operators and supervisors is essential. In general, operators should keep supervisory personnel informed about developments in the unit. Also, operators should feel free to ask questions and make suggestions about ways to improve unit operations, and to ask for feedback on their ideas. Sometimes, operators interact with engineers. Engineers help develop and refine unit operations to maximize production without compromising safety. An operator should answer any questions that engineers have as completely as possible to help ensure the smooth operation of the unit. Other people in a plant that operators often work with are maintenance personnel, such as mechanics, electricians, and instrument technicians. An operator's interpersonal responsibilities with maintenance personnel can affect the safety of plant employees as well as the safety of the unit. Maintenance personnel rely on operators to prepare systems and equipment so that they can be worked on safely and without delays. But before operators make any preparations, they need to know certain things about the work that's being performed. Operators can then make sure that the appropriate isolation and shutdown procedures are performed to ensure the safety of the work. Another group of people that operators sometimes work with consists of laboratory technicians. Often, operators collect and deliver samples to the plant's lab for analyses. Since unit operations can be affected by the results of these analyses, it's important for operators and lab technicians to communicate clearly. Safety personnel comprise another group that operators often work closely with. Safety personnel are the watchdogs of the facility's safety program. They're trained in areas ranging from personal safety to government safety regulations. By following procedures administered by this group, operators help protect themselves and others from safety hazards. In addition to the groups that we've just described, operators frequently work with new operators. In these situations, an experienced operator has some additional interpersonal responsibilities. All experienced operators should try to make a new operator feel welcome and accepted. And they should work together to train new operators as effectively and quickly as possible. Generally, some of the training that a new operator undergoes is conducted in a classroom. Classroom training is usually followed by practical field training, known as on-the-job training. During on-the-job training, the new operator observes and practices the skills and procedures needed to perform a job under the actual work conditions. But regardless of where the training takes place, a formalized training program typically involves several steps. The first step, determining the training needs, involves deciding whether or not training is needed, and then, if it is, what type of training and how much. This step is sometimes accomplished with a verbal or written pre-test. Developing the training materials involves determining the materials, tools, and personnel needed to teach the operator, and making sure that they're available when needed. Part of this step involves developing performance objectives. Basically, a performance objective briefly describes an outcome or intended result of training. It may also describe the performance standards and the conditions under which a job must be completed. And it may identify equipment needed to perform a job. To ensure that performance objectives are met, checklists are typically developed. A checklist identifies in order the specific steps that the trainee must follow to accomplish a performance objective. The third training step, implementing the training, involves making sure that the training is carried out as originally planned to meet the needs of the operator. This step also involves factors such as scheduling the training around unit operations and documenting the training as it occurs. The final step, evaluating the training, is usually accomplished by having the trainee demonstrate the task that was taught. A verbal or written post-test may also be administered to measure the operator's skills and to help identify any deficiencies in the training. Operators work with other people inside the plant every day, but they also work with people from outside of the plant, such as customers and members of the surrounding community. People outside the plant often equate an operator's behavior and appearance with the company itself. So it's important for operators to communicate and act in a responsible manner. Customers sometimes send representatives to a plant to make sure that products are being made according to requirements. The way that an operator interacts with these people is a reflection of the quality that the company puts into its products. The operator should be friendly and have a positive attitude. The operator may be asked to give customers a tour of the unit and answer questions about processes. As a general rule, the operator should answer a customer's questions as accurately as possible, but within reason. Many companies have policies about disclosing information to the public. An operator should always follow his company's policies, and if he's unsure about how to conduct himself in these situations, he should talk to his supervisor. An operator may also be asked to participate in a customer audit of the unit. A customer audit is basically a review of a supplier's operation. The company's future business with that customer may depend on the outcome of the audit. So again, the operator should answer any questions that the customer has as truthfully and accurately as possible, while remembering to follow the company's policies about disclosing information. Besides working with customers, an operator may also interact with other people from outside the plant, such as members of the surrounding community. The way that an operator conducts himself with these people can directly influence how the community feels about the company. When interacting with members of the community, an operator should be friendly and professional. He should also be cautious about what information is provided to the community and how that information is presented. By acting carefully and professionally, an operator can help minimize misunderstandings between the plant and the community and help improve the image of the company. In this topic, we used a basic model to see how the communication process occurs. We also examined how an operator communicates with people inside the plant and outside the plant. Now try some practice questions related to this material. In a plant, operators are responsible for collecting data that can be used to determine if production goals are being met and to analyze and correct problems that may affect the efficiency of the unit. Much of that data is collected in written form. The overall purpose of written data is to provide a record of unit performance. Written records can be maintained in several forms, including scheduled reading sheets, statistical process control or SPC charts, sample and laboratory analysis reports, and unit logs. Let's look at each of these records in more detail. Operators are generally responsible for taking scheduled readings of critical variables associated with the process. These readings become part of the written record of unit performance. Reading sheets typically include information about variables such as pressure, temperature, level, and flow. Readings should be taken at the proper times, and numbers and other information should be written clearly and legibly. However, sometimes a reading can't be taken. For example, a broken instrument could prevent an operator from obtaining a reading. If the required reading can't be obtained, the information should be left out, and, if possible, a note should be written explaining why the reading wasn't taken. An operator should never guess at a reading and record the guess. Also, if a reading can't be taken, or if a value looks abnormal, it should be promptly reported to the appropriate personnel. Sometimes, data that's collected by operators is used in a form of quality control called statistical process control, or SPC. SPC is basically a quality control technique that's used to identify and eliminate problems in a process. When SPC is used, values for measured variables are often collected and averaged, then plotted over time on an SPC chart. The values that are plotted on an SPC chart should fall randomly around an average center line. Those values should also remain within predetermined upper and lower control limit lines. If the plotted values fail to depict a random pattern, it could be an indication of a problem in the process. Operators should notify the appropriate personnel whenever an SPC chart indicates a problem. Another form of written data collection that some operators are involved in has to do with recording information about samples. Operators are often responsible for taking samples to be analyzed in the plant's central laboratory. These samples must be labeled clearly and accurately, and they must be taken to the lab in a timely manner. Laboratory analysis reports are often the benchmark for unit operations, and operating conditions are often based on results included in the reports. So it's important for operators and lab technicians to communicate clearly. In some plants, operators test samples themselves. The results of these tests become part of the unit's permanent written record, so the tests must be done correctly, and the results must be recorded accurately in sample analysis reports. Operators routinely use another type of written record to make notes about significant events to pass on to other operators on future shifts. A log provides a way for operators to pass on information to other operators on future shifts. Logs typically contain information about events such as material transfers, any equipment outages that may have occurred, and maintenance activities that affect the unit. There are several things to keep in mind when making notes in a log. For example, a good log entry should be written clearly and objectively, and it should include the date and time that an incident occurred. The entry should also include identification numbers of the equipment involved. If an operator is certain of the cause of a problem, he might want to include that information in a log entry as well. Operators should review logs routinely to keep up to date on the status of equipment and processes. Some facilities have a log for supervisors. A supervisor's log often contains additional information, such as production rates and notes about any corrective actions that took place. A lot of the information that operators collect and exchange in a plant is obtained orally. That is, the operators communicate information by talking to each other. Oral data collection involves using communication skills to deal with a variety of people. Good oral communication skills are important in any situation. They're especially important during a shift change, when control of the unit is transferred from one operator to another. A shift change, or relief as it's sometimes called, should include an oral summary of the data that's written in the unit log. For the oral summary to be effective, it should have three basic characteristics. First, it should be timely. The summary should be given immediately before a new operator assumes control of the unit. Second, it should be informative. Details such as potential safety hazards and abnormal conditions should be emphasized. Third, the summary should be clear and concise. It should be a thorough but brief recap of the events that took place during the shift. Only essential details should be included. During the summary, the operator being relieved should allow for appropriate feedback to make sure that the message has been understood. Following these basic guidelines during a shift change helps to ensure that control of the unit is maintained without compromising safety and performance. In this topic, we focused on operator responsibilities associated with the collection and use of operating data. We also described the use of good oral communication skills during a shift change or relief. Now try some practice questions related to this material.